Welcome, critters! I'm Sarah Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plot lines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. This particular episode is about Campaign 1, Episode 29, Part 2. Am I getting that right? Okay, cool.
Yes.
I did not have the number in front of me. And the icebreaker, or you joined me. We're just going to be chaotic good today. How about that? Atlas, say
That works for
hello.
me. Hi, I'm Atlas.
Excellent. So the icebreaker I have for today is, which task or chore is your favorite?
I genuinely love vacuuming. Like, it makes me so happy. Even though I have to move my furniture to do it, I like vacuuming.
What do you like about it?
I don't know.
Is it just satisfactory?
I guess. I don't know. It's the one good thing about having carpet is I get to vacuum it. I hate carpet.
Do you
I
do
love
those
vacuum.
like lines afterwards to like get all the nice little designs?
No,
Yeah, okay.
no. That is entirely too much effort. And honestly, I don't know if my carpet would hold them. I have very cheap renter's carpet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have to say, folding laundry is one of my favorites.
Interesting.
Yeah, because if you do it right when it's out of the dryer, it's warm and it smells good. And I get to organize everything into nice categorized piles.
Very nice. I get it from that aspect, sure.
Yeah, like if it's warm and it smells good and it's just like I get to like organize it's great. I love it. If like the only chore that I had to do was folding laundry, like I'd fold laundry every day, honestly, if I had to.
Can't relate, but good for you.
It's yeah, vacuuming, I could take or leave. The bathroom is the bane of my existence. But
Yeah.
laundry,
Yeah.
laundry is where it's at for me. All right, well,
I
please
have to
join
talk
us.
myself into laundry.
Yeah, I mean, I will always fold it. Whether I put it away or not is another question.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But as I will, folding it is not the issue. It's fitting it to my closet is the next step that I often procrastinate on. I don't know why that step in particular, but at least I can fold laundry while watching TV. That's what I do. It's like I make a big pile in my living room and watch TV and fold laundry at the same time. But
There
then,
you go. It's a whole event.
yeah, getting it to the living room to my bedroom, though, is another. All right, well, please join us as we embark on this exciting adventure in story analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well, so comment, like, share, subscribe, and ready? All right, let's dive in. As we open this second half, take it away, Atlas.
So we start with them waking up from a long rest and they all roll. Percy takes 1 point of corruption, which means he's feeling a little worse for wear, a little bit of a cough, which Taliesin does a great job of playing out for the rest of the episode. They start planning to kill Sir Kirion, but kind of just toss around a few plans without getting very far. They contemplate setting fire to everything but the nobles' houses and seeing who runs out, trying as a plan to find Carrion. That was Scanlan's suggestion. Percy suggests that they move their sleeping arrangements for safety, and that really doesn't go anywhere. As they contemplate leaving their little hideout, Scanlan recasts Seamain so that everybody is peasants, and Trinket is a donkey again. Percy suggests they start by going to a shop he's familiar with, and the crew heads out. The shop, however, is partially collapsed and the door is torn off of the hinges. Vex is the first to enter, and everything of value is long gone. There are ruddy stains on the hardwood floor, and the dust suggests that everything was cleared out at least 6 months ago. They do find a small cellar door, but that cellar is also empty. They briefly consider using it as a base of operations before deciding it's too exposed, and they head towards the closest mansion they can find. It's a nice building with an imposing fence and a locked gate. They debate asking around to find out where Carrion lives or just dealing with whoever lives here first. And they kind of don't really settle on any one option, but they end up sneaking away in a hurry because one of the shuffling humanoids that has been patrolling is headed their way. Instead, they head towards the lady's chamber. While they're on their way, Scanlan ducks into a valley to ask some townsfolk some questions and inquire about where to find Sir Carrion, and they are told that his house is the one in the southeast. They end up at the Temple of Arathis, where they find a very small group of people listening to a sermon by a man Percy recognizes as Keeper Yannon. Percy knows him as someone who wasn't necessarily a favorite of the Derolos, but who is good for the people and strong-willed, both things that will serve them well in this instance. The sermon ends and the people start to clear out, and Percy decides to start a conversation with Yannon. He asks, do you think there's hope for Whitestone? And do you think that there will come a day when these people can seize freedom for themselves against their oppressors? Yannon is a little skeptical, but not completely ruling it out, and suggests that they would need some inspiration or help from outside forces. Yannon tries to encourage these unfamiliar travelers to continue on their way as soon as possible rather than lingering in Whitestone. Percy instead offers a prayer that stood out to me. He says, I pray for a day to come when outside forces can rally the people of Whitestone again, that strangers may come and bring with them salvation, and that the people will seize the opportunity. Look for signs, Keeper Yannon. Look for signs. And he hands him a piece of parchment with the Dorolo crest on it. Percy leaves Keeper Yannon with the parchment bearing the Dorolo crest and some carefully worded thoughts on the resurrection of things that were long thought dead and gone, and they head towards Carrion's manor. When discussing the manor, they start a brief discussion of who Anna Ripley is, as she is believed to be housed in the manor that they were previously closest to, and determine that she is a target for another day. They finally make a beeline to the Stonefell Mansion, having had some very long discussions about what they're doing in the meantime. And as they make their way through town, rain sets in, and it looks like it's sticking around. When they finally reach the mansion, there are guards and a gate, and they circle looking for other ways in. A few of the party notice an exterior door and a number of windows that might serve as possibilities. There is light and movement in the house, so that they know that there is someone there. To get in, Grog bends the bars of the fence with the help of Keyless Heat Metal spell, and the party sneaks in with some very high stealth checks. They get lucky here. Vax unlocks the cellar door, but can't tell what's going on inside, so Vex stealths in a bit and determines that it's clear. They all duck in just in time to avoid another one of the patrolling giants. They find a ladder in the corner that leads to the house. Upstairs, they hear someone pacing and a muffled conversation between a man whose voice is familiar and a man whose voice is not. There's a brief discussion on how to best approach this before Vax sneaks out of the cellar and ends up in some kind of closet. The muffled conversation is happening within proximity of the closet, but it's hard to tell where. The familiar voice suggests a show of power to incentivize the townsfolk, and the unfamiliar voice is more focused on making sure that this place has alarms, and traps for their expected visitors. They decide to send Grog out first, and the closet door opens into a music room. The conversation continues in the next room over, the one that was on the other side of the closet, and Vax pulls Grog and Keyleth into the hallway headed towards the voices. Trinket has to stay in the cellar because he can't climb ladders, which disappoints Vex and delights Scanlan. The party assembles outside the double doors that lead to the next room, and Vax clicks his boosts of haste, rushing in, and they enter a surprise round. There are the two people in conversation and a few guards. When everybody rolls for initiative, Percy takes the first slot. He gets his first shot off at a guard before turning to the familiar sight of Kyrian Stonefell. And he has the lovely quote of, "If you're lucky, you die last." We're reminded that during all of this, they look like generic peasants, so it's slightly less dignified than you might expect. Grog uses his new great weapon master feat on the old man that Kyrian was talking to, and Scanlan dominates one of the guards, while Keyleth tries to cast Call Lightning but realizes the storm cloud is too big to manifest in the room. Vex shoots a storm arrow into the fray, hitting twice, and Vax buries several daggers in Kyrian. Keyleth makes an insight check to see if he might be a vampire, but sees no indication of it. She transforms into a white direwolf and tries to flank Kyrian, but her size makes that impossible, so she attacks a different target and knocks them prone. With the surprise round over, Percy takes out the guard he's next to with 3 shots of the pepper box, and action surges to send 3 sharpshooter shots towards Kyrian. As he shoots, dark smoke pours out of Percy's body and starts to envelop his gun arm. Kyrian is under the impression that his attacker is Anna Ripley due to the seeming spell. At the end of his turn, Percy asks Scanlan to drop the seeming spell. Kyrian attacks Vax on his turn, largely missing and only doing 4 points of damage. He steps back, allowing Vax to take an attack of opportunity, but also allowing Kyrian to bang on the wall, calling for backup. Grog lands 2 more strikes on the old man, who then misty steps out of reach and casts invisibility on himself and Kyrian. Knowing reinforcements are coming, Scanlan goes to grab Vex from the hallway and casts Stinking Cloud in the way. Vex shoots a lightning arrow at the guard Keyleth is attacking, hoping to catch the invisible men in the radius. She doesn't do much damage, but an outline does shimmer, so Vax tries to attack the invisible men, but misses all of his attempts. Keyleth drops her wolf form and casts Fairy Fire, revealing the invisible pair and making it possible for them to continue attacking. The guard gets up and moves to attack Scanlan, but misses, and the dominated guard attacks the old guy, landing 2 hits. Percy shoots Kyrian again. The smoke is pushing for vengeance, and Percy pulls on his beaked mask and moves for the final shot on Kyrian. As he shoots Kyrian, he says that this is for the Durolos, and let me say, you were the one I was least looking forward to, a line that Percy will never live down. At this point, Percy is just a humanoid entity made of black swirling smoke energy with the pointed beak of his mask poking through, something that hasn't been seen before by the group. When he kills Kyrian, Percy drops the gun and races to find something to remove the name from the barrel of the gun, while Grog takes out another guard. The old man drops invisibility and casts haste on himself, trying to get away, but Keyleth is able to bring him down with an attack of opportunity. Scanlan sends the dominated guard into the hallway to tell the backup that everything is fine. Percy loots Kyrian's body and uses his rapier to scratch out the name on the barrel, but as he does, the name glows and burns away instead. They tie up the old man that was casting spells and knock out the dominated guard. Keyleth cures the old man so that they can ask him some questions. He's gagged, but confirms that the Briarwoods are around and know that Vox Machina is in town. In trying to provide information in exchange for his life, the old guy tells them about a secret entrance to the castle and the Briarwoods project room, which is in the caverns under the city. At this point, Scanlan finally drops Seeming. Percy is adamant that the man will know who he is eventually and asks him to mark the secret entrance on the map. When he does, it's one that Percy is familiar with. At Percy's suggestion, Grog rips out the old dude's tongue, and Percy cauterizes the wound and marks the man with the hot barrel of his gun. The party balks at the amount of violence that is happening post-combat, wary that if they overplay their hand, they won't be able to free Whitestone from its oppressors. The contingent of half-elves, mostly, has a few objections to the amount of gratuitous violence that is happening and warn Percy that maybe he's going too far and that he might end up becoming more like the scourge he's trying to remove from his city than he would like. In an interesting exchange, Scanlan asks Percy, "Is that last barrel for you?" And Percy's answer is, "No, but if it was, would I tell you?"
Mhm.
They decide to leave the heavier conversations for later at this point and opt to set the house on fire as they leave. They throw the tongueless old man out the window and remove the unconscious guard and Carrion's body as they go. Keyleth flies to the roof and burns the Dorolo crest into it with flaming sphere before sending it to crash down in front of the guard. Grog catches her as she jumps from the roof, and the party stealths away before the guards can catch them. They make it back to their hideout safely, and while the building didn't burn to the ground, there is a clear burn pattern in the roof, and things are definitely in motion.
All right. Well, I think one of the things that strikes me the most about the second half is how at first they are eager for fighting. Like all of them have these very big propelling motivations to fight. Like they are itching for a fight. Like Scanlan's suggestion to burn everything down. And I think even when they come across that first mansion, they're like, should we go in? Should we go in? Should we go in? But then they're like, it's a very constant push and pull that we're dealing with in the second half of the episode. But then finally they're directed at Sir Carrion's house, and they are given the opportunity to do this action fighting thing that they were all kind of raring to go on. And then they start getting cold feet after the fact.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if this is maybe one of the first fights they've had that is people-centered. They fought a lot of creatures, but they haven't fought a lot of people, especially not with fatalities.
I'm wondering if the old man was reminiscent of the old woman.
Yeah.
You know?
So, even the people that they have killed, like that brought up a lot of contention, and she was not as heavily involved in the story, and it wasn't like it was violent, but it was also quick. It wasn't, interrogate a dude and rip his tongue out. It was, she got killed violently, but and it was quick and over. And it was still a huge deal. And this is an escalation of that I kind of wonder if that's what makes them hesitate in the way they do.
I think Keyleth really wanted them to be vampires, because if they were vampires, that would make the whole decision so much easier for her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that ties into the point I was trying to make of if they were vampires, then they're monsters. These are just people.
Exactly.
They're evil people, but they're just people.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was almost jarring how quickly the half-elves were regretful after the fact. I don't know if I can use that word, but at least disapproving after the fact. And I wonder, I think they all have different motivations too in their disapproval. Like Vex is obviously very concerned about Percy's mental health at this moment. So is Keyleth. But I think Keyleth has a stronger history of, up until this point, looking at the moral quandary that they're facing more so than the other two half-elves in the party. And Vax, I think, is he taking Keyleth's side on this?
Kind of, and I have the quotes pulled here of what they say. and it's slightly different. Keyleth is on her train, her usual train of like, let's not become the Briarwoods, and what makes us different from the Briarwoods at this point. And that's very much in character for her. She's asked that kind of question before. But Vax's concern is more about the people, and his quote is, "I'm not saying that man was innocent, but he's had a hard road. Everyone here has had a hard road. And I'm maybe willing to overlook what just happened for all the hardship you've had, but be careful how you're walking." He's more concerned that they don't let people who are responding to a bad situation become the victims here. Whereas Keyleth is more concerned with her own morality, their own morality of the group, whereas Vax is trying not to create more traumatized victims who maybe just need the opportunity to do something different.
I mean, that's why I was almost surprised that most of them went for guards first when they entered that surprise round. Like, I think that's what, like, why didn't they just go for Carrion first?
Yeah, I think part of that is Matt described them as like hired guns, as mercenaries, like as if they knew what they were to. And part of that is also just battle tactics of trying to survive as a character. It's at some point you do have to bring in the fact that this is a game where you have to also make choices based on what allows you to be successful. Because a whole bunch of guards ganging up on you makes it a whole lot harder fight. So I think there was a little bit of story there, but mostly it was just game tactics.
I mean, I wonder if they're projecting their disagreement with their own actions onto Percy.
Maybe. I
Because
also think this is
go
one
ahead.
of the first. I think this is one of the first times that they see how deep this runs for Percy.
I mean,
So I think it's a little bit of both.
yeah. And I definitely think, Keyleth brought this up before the fight even started, is like his mental health and like where he is mentally and emotionally for sure. And I think that they're definitely concerned about that. And they're definitely concerned about the impact that all of this is having on him as well. But I also wonder about the projection aspect of it, because there are other options at their disposal. Like Scanlan went immediately for dominate person, not killing actions, right? He immediately went for stinking cloud more so than arrows and all of the other elements. And like we see this in other campaigns too, where like some characters go into a situation and they use friends, they use charming spells, they use more mind manipulation more so than bodily harm in those scenarios. And so I'm wondering if they realized that halfway through the fight,
Yeah. I think there's definitely a possibility for that. I also think, one of the things that they say repeatedly is that because this is Percy's town, Percy's story, they'll follow his lead. They just didn't expect his lead to be so violent because he is historically in this group one who is more diplomatic and a little bit more prone to offering options. Like he's not the one to shoot first, ask questions later until he gets here. So I think it's a combination of things, and a big part of that is Percy here is different than they have ever seen him, and they are committed to following his lead, committed to supporting him in whatever path he chooses to take, because this is his story. But this is so far from what they expected from him. And it's so far from anything they've ever seen from him. And then you add in black smoke and something a little bit questionable there. And all of a sudden, even though he's their friend, their guard is up in a way that it wasn't before.
I mean, he hasn't really been involved in any of the planning either. Like all of the
Mm-mm.
discussions that they were having prior to the fight, he didn't really contribute much beyond let's go to the store, let's go to this temple, you know? And so
Yeah,
hasn't really explained like when I see these people, I am going to kill them in cold blood.
right.
Like, I don't know if he's
So,
even said that beyond, like, I remember him saying something explicitly in the last couple episodes. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but he does say, like, we're in this to kill them, but to what
mhm.
degree of violence, I think, is the question that they're objecting to here.
Yeah. Yeah, and he does make a passing comment in this episode that's basically, we're gonna kill them all. We're aiming
Mhm.
for like one a day.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
tomorrow's problem. Um, and it is, I don't think that was taken seriously. I think that was taken as a
yeah,
joke, but
exactly.
I think he was serious.
Yeah, because Grog's been raring for a fight this entire time, right?
Oh
He's
yeah,
like,
Grog always
when
is
do
one.
I get to kill people? And everyone
Mm-hmm.
expects that of Grog, right?
Right.
Percy is now acting like Grog when Percy is supposed to be the reasonable one. He's supposed to be the diplomatic one. He's supposed to be the more sophisticated intellectual of the group, right? And so
Right. He's
they
the one who thinks things through, and he's not here, and he can't.
mm,
He's too close to all of it.
trauma.
Trauma. Yeah. I don't know. And that's part of what's so fascinating about the second half of this episode is in the first half, he's still in that space where he is the logical one, and they're kind of methodically moving through town. And then they get too close to Kyrian. They get too close to the object of his anger, and he just loses it entirely.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And like, we'll definitely see how this unfolds, but there's a lot of intergroup confusion for as much as they planned, for as careful as they were leading up to this point, and as much as they discussed and tried to be stealthy and tried to approach this from a very reasonable, calculated, intentional point of view, when the flint hit the stone, things erupted.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a perfect example of like plans are useless at the end of the day. Like planning is priceless, but when the rubber meets the road, you're going to have to be able to adapt as you go. You can't just stick to an expectation. You can't just stick to one plan. It's a fluid thing once it starts.
Yeah. And I think in trying to start a revolution, it's never going to go the way you think it's going to because it involves too many people.
Yeah.
There's too many moving parts.
Yeah.
Um, but the way this turned out had the potential to do that. Whereas I think some of the other ways this could have gone, if they had followed their plan to the letter, I don't think it would have done what they wanted to do.
Hmm. I mean, even now that I'm thinking about it, Vax did directly go for Carrion and his surprise round.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain actors within the group that stayed focused,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of them also got distracted too.
Yeah, it's an interesting episode in many ways. Um, I think it's really easy for us to get distracted too, because there
Sure.
is so much about this that is, the start of many things for Percy and the start of this revolution, and to kind of lose track of the fact that there's a lot of innocent people here.
Mm.
Um, and I think that just goes to illustrate that it's the same for the players. Like they're wrapped up in this revolution idea, and a lot gets lost.
Revolutions are not bloodless.
No, no, they are not. Um, especially when, you're dealing with something like this where they're sacrificing children as effigies. You know,
Yeah.
that's where we're starting.
It's hard to be the good guys in a revolution and not spill blood, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that that's a myth that often exists about good guys.
Yeah.
Like we save the day and we save the people in the process, but it's very, 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 very difficult to avoid collateral damage in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a revolution was going to be heavy no matter how it went.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just got an early wake-up call to that in
Mm-hmm.
this piece of this episode.
Mm-hmm. And there's echoes of the collateral damage of this for multiple campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this arc of this campaign never goes away.
No, it does not. Well, any personal experiences coming to mind here?
I think that there was very little that came to mind personally for this one. Um, it is very focused in, bigger questions and moral questions and things that are not applicable to a lot of daily life, at
Mm,
least not in my case.
mm,
So I looked at this one and went, I don't know. I don't
mm,
know if I have a personal experience that ties into this one.
mm. I mean, for me, it's just about the miscommunication, I think, is like, you can think that everyone's on the same page going into a potentially stressful situation. Like whether it's traveling with family, whether it's working with coworkers, whether it's, working on whatever collaborative team projects you have going on. Like I remember this is especially true for me when it comes to traveling with other people, like doing cross-country airplane trips and planes being delayed or like you're missing your connecting flight or like any of the things that can go wrong in the course of regular airline travel and realizing that the people that you're traveling with aren't necessarily coping with it in the same ways that you are.
Yeah.
And that I think can be a massive disruption to group harmony and ultimately affect your experience of the trip as a whole.
Yeah, that's an interesting takeaway from this. Because it is so big picture, don't think I actually focused in on any of like the littler lessons that could come out of
Mm,
this one.
mm,
But I like that one. I see how it ties in.
mm.
And we can all learn to communicate a little bit better. Just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
constantly moving target.
yeah. I had a particularly bad trip with someone, a significant other of mine from years ago. We decided to do kind of like an East Coast tour because my best friend from high school at the time, she had been doing a Peace Corps mission in Africa. And so she had been coming home for her only trip home during that 2 years for another friend's wedding in our hometown. And we also wanted to pop up to New England in order to see my dad in the process. And so we basically did like a Midwest New England tour trip. And like if I had been doing it on my own, I would have been able to like, cope the way that I was able to and, handle things on my own. But the person I was traveling with did not take travel stress well at all. And there were many an awkward Uber car ride where like the adaptive challenges that we were being faced with, like getting a rental car and like all of these other things were negatively impacting my experience of the trip as a whole. And I've traveled so much that I'm able to roll with the punches more often, but someone who's not as experienced with travel, it's definitely a different experience with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's also comes a little bit down to personality. I
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
yeah, I know with a partner of mine and myself, like I was more of a go with the flow. If things don't work out, we'll
Hmm.
find something to do. And if we didn't stick exactly to the plan, they tended to get really flustered and freaked out and just start to panic.
Yeah.
And I would get really frustrated with them for getting frustrated, and it just spirals.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
actually went to the New York Critical Role live show that trip.
Ooh, fun.
That was the a campaign one or campaign two live show at that point in
Mhm.
time. And afterwards, the event didn't get out until like midnight, I think, is when we ended in Eastern Standard Time. And of course, everyone was calling Ubers and Lyfts
Right.
after the
And
event.
it's midnight.
And it's midnight. And so, like, we couldn't find a Lyft to save our life to get back to our hotel. And like, he was getting more and more stressed. And I was like, look, I need to eat something. Like, we need to stop into a bodega and get myself a banana. Like, I need to eat something, put something in my stomach. And he just got more and more stressed. And I was like, what were you expecting? It's like 2,000 critters coming out at midnight and being like, Uber, Lyft. Are you
Please.
are you expecting 2,000 lifts to be just like readily available?
Right?
Like the driver companies didn't plan for this.
No, because nobody would.
Yeah, yeah. And the closest like subway stop was like half a mile away, a mile away. So it would
Yeah.
have been a trek to get there, and it's funny. But Critical Role was great.
And that's the important part.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm definitely thinking about like you have to have that developed ability to roll with the punches. And I don't know if Vox Machina has yet developed that.
Yeah, based on this episode, I'd be skeptical.
Because they're all kind of, like you said, newbies to this whole revolution concept as
Yep.
well. Like they were small time actors, and I think they got used to being big fish in a small pond in Amman.
Yeah.
And now they're in a new environment where they don't have a keep, they don't have any sway or influence in this new environment, and yet they're still at the head of a revolution,
Maybe?
maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I know we talked about this a little bit last time, but they definitely feel out of their depth and yet more comfortable and confident here.
Yeah, I don't know if that still holds true though at the end of this episode.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think they've got some interpersonal stuff to work out,
Mm-hmm.
but I think as a group and in what they're trying to do, they still feel pretty confident in their path
Mm-hmm.
and what they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've got some interpersonal crap to work on. And they need to have some of those hard conversations that they started and need to
Yeah.
finish. But they are still kind of in a place where, as a group, they are cohesive in their goals. They're feeling good about their ability to achieve them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not feeling disheartened after this. They feel like they got what they needed to do done. So I think they're still in that kind of place.
Mm-hmm. I like your optimism.
I don't think it's gonna last, but I think for now they're still there.
I like the optimism. I'm gonna go with the optimism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what are we gonna do about it?
I think the big thing here is kind of do some self-reflection and figure out some of those big questions. You know, it's wonderful that media like this can bring up big
Yeah.
questions and give us the opportunity to think about them in a way that is less intimidating than real life. Um,
Yeah.
so I think this is one of those opportunities that Critical Role is so good at bringing up of
Mm.
here's a facilitation for some bigger life questions that you should maybe look at.
Absolutely.
And going through this series slowly, like we have been,
Hmm.
lets me actually take this time to, think about some of those things that I wouldn't normally take the time to consider in my everyday life.
I was thinking about something similar today in terms of my writing career because I have a tendency to kick myself for not getting into writing fiction earlier in my life. But I don't honestly think I could have written fiction earlier in my life without having Critical Role first.
Oh, interesting.
Because Critical Role, especially Matt, has taught me how to build story, how to tell story. And I don't think I would have been able to deal with the more traumatic aspects of character building and character narrative arcs if I hadn't seen it played out, role played by
Right.
Critical Role first.
Yeah, they are amazing storytellers, and Matt is an incredible facilitator.
Hmm.
So I kind of see where that comes from.
Because I think a lot of authors, too, especially like newer authors, have a tendency to get stuck in the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like they write these really gritty thriller, like very real life based experience trauma for their own characters,
Right.
and it's an attempt to process their own trauma through the characters that they write. And I think that's why a lot of people start with writing like memoirs or like even if it's not a memoir, but a story that is pretty much note for note the same trauma that they went through,
Right.
even if it is a fictionalized version of it. And I think they struggle to get beyond that trauma and like come up with
Right.
a happy ending or at least a resolved ending for their characters because they themselves have not gotten to the resolved happy part yet either.
Yeah, I think that is very true for a lot of beginner authors, but especially true for people who use writing as a coping mechanism,
Yes.
which is true of a lot of people. And I've been subjected to some of my friends like debut novels.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
like I appreciate that you are working through some stuff, but you need to wrap this up somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Critical Role taught me how to do that. Matt and the actors taught me how to do that. Is
Yeah.
like, yes, we are traumatized, imperfect beings, and we can step by step process that together in a group environment in order to get to the other side of it.
Yeah, and just keeping it vague because we're not there yet, but if we trace Percy's storyline through just Critical Role in general, but especially campaign one, there's so much of it that was so rooted in the trauma. He is built around this. This arc is his arc. And
Yeah.
after it is the question. And the thing I love about this arc coming so early is he has time to go through that process of feeling lost and then moving on towards something else. And he as a character needed that. And I think that's something that's really important to learn that we don't see often enough. There
Mhm.
aren't many characters that get that kind of breathing room, and he gets it because
Mhm.
he's part of an ensemble cast, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and it's critical to making his story work and giving him the ending that he deserves.
Yeah. I mean, we see this later with Bax and Liam for sure,
Yeah.
especially with Liam's real life that comes into
Yes.
play with, in relation to Critical Role. And yeah, I was thinking about this today is like, I don't think I could have been the author I am without Critical Role first.
Yeah.
So thanks, Critical Role. Love you.
You tell good stories.
Yeah, you help us heal. Anything else before we wrap up?
I think that's it for me.
Yeah. I just want to give Critical Role, like the entity, a hug. If I could do that. It's so funny. So my best friend came across a question in a podcast the other day of like, what three items would summon you in like a
Mm,
spell? Like, what are the three
okay.
items that would summon you? And she's like, I know what yours are. And I was like, fine. And she said, a really good vegan ice cream sandwich,
Okay.
because I love really good vegan ice cream sandwiches. Um, oh, what was the second thing? Oh, vampire smut and a pirated version of The Legend of Voxmock. And I was like, you know me to my core.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, between those three things, I'd be like, you rang? Hello.
Ooh, that's a fun question though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe I can, well, I already gave my answer, but think about it and text me your answer.
Oh, for sure. It's gonna take me a little bit.
All right. Well, these are powerful themes that we're talking about here in audience. We definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and insights and stories with us as well. We'd love to know how Critical Role has impacted you in your own lives. Special thanks to Alice for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
And next time is actually going to be a super exciting episode, Campaign 1, Episode 30, Part 1, because it is our first Halloween episode. The cast likes to dress up every Halloween episode when it's a Halloween IRL their time. And so we decided that we want to dress up too for our own version of Halloween, non-Halloween in February, March. It's going to be in March. And so we're actually going to be doing a trio among all of us hosts, and we'll be doing it dressed up in costume for the Halloween spirit. So get hyped for that. As always, I'm looking for more co-hosts and guests. So if you're interested in coming on here and being a nerd with me, reach out to me. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe below. Follow us on Tumblr at Secret Reading CR for all the juicy updates. And until next time, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be free, and be the chaotic good you wish to see in the world. Take care, guys.
Bye.